Hey folks out there in modeling land, here I am. Well, we're going to be doing a little, something a little different than we've done before. We're going to do a little walk around of an older project, something that I just sort of refurbished in the what if realm, because you guys that follow this channel know I love doing that. So it should be no mystery that what you see in front of you is an F-16. It's a 1/48 scale F-16. The particular variant here may confuse some because it's carrying a very strange weapons loadout for an F-16. Yes, these are AIM-7 Sparrows under the wings of an F-16. And we're not used to seeing that, are we? No. So some people might say, what is going on here? Now, yes, it is a what-if aircraft. I love the what-if modeling. I should change my channel name from Air Force Builder to What-If Builder, just because I love doing it so much. But this, while it is a what-if project, I am not getting crazy with the armament. And like I said, some of you are very familiar with what we're looking at here, just airframe-wise and aircraft-wise, although that might throw you. Some of you are looking at it going, what are you doing with those missiles? So there are two versions of the F-16 that have and do currently carry the AIM-7 Sparrow as a primary armament. The current one is the F-16 IQ, flown by the Iraqi Air Force, the modern-day Iraqi Air Force. Now, we decided that given the geopolitical military instability of that nation and its armed forces, we might not want to give them the full AMRAAM, AIM-120 AMRAAM technology and all that capability on their F-16s like we give to other allied nations. So they are restricted to carrying AIM-7 Sparrows today. They actively fly. Their primary weapon on their F-16s is the AIM-7. Can you believe that? A missile that we retired. We say retired, but we still have a bunch of them. We have a bunch of them in warm storage for the Pacific Theater should we ever have to fight it out with like Russia or China. They're still there because our F-16s do have the capability to use them, but that's another story. And so do our F-15s, and so do F-18s, but whatever. But the only other variant of the F-16 that routinely carried them as a primary weapon system was a model of the F-16A, the Block 15, also known as the ADF or the ADV, the Air Defense Fighter or Air Defense Variant. And this was a model of the F-16A that was specifically rigged out to fulfill the role in fighter interceptor squadrons for what was formerly known as Air Defense Command, but basically it went to Air National Guard squadrons and Air Reserve squadrons that had the role of continental defense in conjunction with NORAD. So squadrons that flew F-4 Phantoms or F-102, F-106 fighters that in their history flew F-101 Voodoos, on that continental alert status. They were equipped with F-16s with, at the time, upgraded radars, because the F-16 radar, the APG-66, could not interact. It didn't have the necessary hardware and computer systems to handle the AIM-7. They were given HF radio systems for that, what we call the doomsday communication, because that's the kind of long-range heavy radio systems that NORAD used to communicate throughout the country and the world, basically. And that kind of explains this bulge here, but we'll get to that. And they were given the task of defending the continental United States. So we saw these flying in New York. We saw them flying in Vermont. We saw them flying in California, in Oregon. We saw them. So if there are some other places, but if you're getting the geography here, in states along the northern edge of the country, where they may have to take off and intercept incoming enemy bombers. And so you would want them to have a longer range radar guided missile. At the time, remember, there was no AMRAAM. There didn't exist. Well, it existed, but it was in testing. It wasn't a fielded missile. So, they gave the F-16 at the time, the capability to shoot the Sparrow. Now, like I said, modern day F-16s do have, they can be outfitted with the continuous wave illumination mode for the APG-68 and follow-on radars to shoot the Sparrow, but we typically don't use the Sparrow anymore because it's outdated technology. It's a semi-active radar homing missile instead of an active radar homing missile, and that's the subject of a whole nother video. But that is why you see Sparrows under the wings of this aircraft. They actually did, it's a real thing. That is not the what if of this plane. The what if that we have what ifing here is that I have always loved the old Strategic Air Command paint job that they used. It's a gloss black bottom, and it's a specific 3-color, almost kind of based on the Southeast Asian tan, dark green, light green, but some very specific colors that Strategic Air Command put on aircraft, bomber aircraft, in the 70s, I'd say 60s up to even almost the 90s, you know? And I thought, how cool would it be to see an F-16 wearing that camouflage? And, you know, this was designed for kind of low-level penetration into enemy airspace. It could also work at high altitude. So I decided I was going to see an F-16 ADF, ADV, whatever you want to call it. Let's say that Strategic Air Command picked up the mission of continental air defense in conjunction with NORAD. You know, Strategic Air Command was quite a command back in the day, with the motto "Peace is our profession." And why not? You know, why if they had Strategic Air Command was the Doomsday Command, why would they not also, let's just make the what if that they also not only sent death and destruction to the world in the form of nuclear bombers, but they defended us from enemy nuclear bombers as well. And so let's put these F-16 ADVs, ADFs in the hands of the active duty service. And so I wanted to see an active duty Strategic Air Command, continental defense, you know, going back to the days of Air Defense Command when it was all active duty, F-16. And I thought, what a cool project to do. So here I am with my what if. So totally based on a real plane, okay? Just what ifed out in terms of paint job. I made some modifications to it a little bit, and you know, had some fun with markings. So we'll start with the kit itself. Now there are some decent Block 15 kits out there. Italeri has one, and Kinetic has one. The Italeri one is based on their very terrible old F-16 kit with just some glue-on pieces. So you know, and really, honestly, one of the, there's an old Revell kit, and that's what this one is based on. This is an old Revell kit, and it's kind of, I think, the original Block 15 F-16 kit, and that's what I built this one out of. You know, however long ago I did it, and it's actually not a bad kit. It's not too bad in terms of generalized accuracy, and it comes with some pieces that are pretty good to build an accurate Block 15. Some of the things that you need to consider when building a Block 15 is it's got to have these specific fairings on the tail. This is, so I said I'd get to them later. When they installed the extra HF radio equipment, you know, the F-16 is not a big airplane. There's not a lot of extra room to cram black boxes in. So what they ended up doing was they, to fit, you know, the HF radio equipment in, it ended up going into where a lot of the actuators and stuff for the hydraulics for the tail would go. So they had to move stuff around. These fairings are for repositioning mechanics and stuff for the tail. That's why these fairings are there. And so you have your HF radio set up for, you know, for those long haul doomsday communications in there. But that's one of the hallmarks. That's how you can tell. I mean, if nothing else, you're looking to visually recognize a Block 15 air defense fighter from any other F-16. It's got the short base tail without that extra UHF antenna because they only have the single UHF radio instead of the two, like C models, and it's got those fairings on the tail. Easiest way to recognize a Block 15 F-16. Now, it has a great intake for as old F-16s go. There's nothing in there. But it's, you know, nicely done. There's not a lot of seams to look at. I did a little bit of filling with Mr. Surfacer. Not perfect, but again, this is an older kit and older work, so that worked out pretty well. Comes with, this is the fuel tank from the kit. It worked out pretty nice. Now, the kit itself is engraved panel lines. The kit itself is all raised panel lines. And you'll see on the bottom, I kind of left them because we're not going to be looking a lot at the bottom of the plane. I scribed all the panel lines on the top of the plane. And they're not 100% accurate. They're not. They're okay. And, you know, again, this is earlier work that I did, threw in a box, and then, you know, just I took it out later and did it. Like I said, I recently refurbished it. So you can see, like, look, there's some mistakes that were made that, like, if I did it today, I would have totally filled and sanded these scratch marks. And there were a few around there where, you know, this is my scribing game was a little weaker back then, but I scribed all the panel lines, which really did add, I think. And again, not 100% accurate panel lines, but decent for the time, we'll say. One of the other ways to recognize a Block 15 is that they have a very high candle power white light searchlight built into the left side of the aircraft, so that pilots can get alongside an airplane that they're intercepting and they can visually ID it, they can read tail numbers, they can look for markings, they can look for it. So that needs to be on the actual kit. It's just basically you're just supposed to paint it silver. I found a spare piece of clear plastic. I drilled a hole. I mounted it in there so that we could actually have like a white light lens. You know, and that worked out pretty well. It came with the kit, actually, for the time, came with the bird slicers for the top and the bottom. Now, you see these on modern Block 50 and midlife upgrade F-16s. Those are IFF antennas. Now, believe it or not, old F-16As did not have a good IFF system. The Mark 12 IFF system is what we use now. IFF stands for Identification Friend or Foe. And it basically allows aircraft to interrogate another airplane, and there are different, what we call, modes and codes. And some modes and codes are just broadcast all the time. There's a series of numbers and coded identifiers, and those numbers can identify you according to an FAA flight plan or according to a military air tasking order. And there's coded responses that we use that we don't even give to our closest allies, one of the modes. And so we can interrogate to see if you are replying to that absolutely identifies you as a friendly. So the IFF system that they put in here, those early Block 15s, allowed the F-16 to actually interrogate that and to like nowadays it's built into all of our systems. They're able to interrogate, and there are some other fancy radar systems, radar modes that we can use. But that's how. The last thing you want a pilot to have to do is to close to within visual range and physically identify. Now, we always teach, military, that a visual identification is the most reliable means of identification, but it's the last thing you want a pilot to have to do. The last thing you want him to do is to have to close to within visual range, because if it is an enemy, our pilot's now at a big disadvantage. But electronic ID or EID is a big way that we identify who's out there, who's who in the zoo, as we say in the Air Force. But these bird slicer antennas, great pieces that come with the original Revell kit. So these weapons are from Hasegawa weapon sets, because the missiles that come with the kit are nicely detailed. Actually, so this is not one. I don't still have them. They're nicely detailed, but they're big. They're big for the scale. They're overscaled. They are nice weapons, but too big. Soft detail. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. I wish I still had them. They're nicely detailed, but like kind of cartoonish looking. So I replaced it with Hasegawa weapons. Now, one of the things that the kit does give you that's really cool is that this is a 503, we'll call a 503 pylon or a 503 launcher. There's very specific, and I know it looks like any other F-16 pylon right there. It's not, though. It's very specific pylon that the AIM-7 goes on for the F-16. And so it's cool that it comes with it. Now, you can buy resin ones, aftermarket resin ones, but the 503 is required for a good ADV, ADF to carry this Sparrow. And the one that the Revell kit comes with is really cool. The Block 15s are all early model F-16, so they're all smallmouth intakes. They're all Pratt & Whitney engine aircraft. So what is a smallmouth intake? If you don't know, when we got up to the Block 30 level, Block 30, 32, they came up with the common engine bay, which allowed the F-16s to now use either a Pratt & Whitney or a GE engine. The GE engine is has a little bit more power, but they have what we call the big mouth intake or the small mouth. In order to use the GE engine, you need a big mouth intake, and I'll probably put pictures in so you can see. I love the look of the GE engine exhaust. That's this one. And once you get to know what you're looking at, the GE engine exhaust is kind of a little more rounded, and the Pratt & Whitney is a little bit more angular. Now, this is the GE exhaust nozzle from the Italeri kit, because I just had an extra one. Totally cannot function. Doesn't get enough air, really, with the smallmouth intake. But you know what? It's a what if, and I really liked it, so I stuck it on there. So this is the rear section from the Italeri kit that I sanded down to fit here. And I really like the exhaust look. And I figured it's a what if anyway. SAC decided that they wanted to use the GE engine, even though it didn't exist yet, for the F-16. We put it on there. Bam. There we go. Hopefully you're noticing that really cool effect on the HUD. That's my favorite nail film trick that I talked about once upon a time with the terrible Italeri F-16 walk-around video. Inside, that's all Edward F-16A photo etch, because the interior is pretty much the same. So that's the seat from, I forgot where that came from. It is not the seat from the kit, though. The seat that the kit comes with is terrible. The cockpit's not great. The cockpit's really not good at all. So I replaced the seat with possibly a Hasegawa seat. I cannot remember right now, to tell you the truth. And photo etch, just to give it a little bit more, good look there. And for the life of me right now, I cannot remember where all the F-16 stenciling comes from. But it's standard F-16 stenciling for the most part. A lot of the markings actually come from an FB-111, Caracal FB-111 called the Dark Varks set. So that's where the Strategic Air Command crest comes from. The tail number is actually an FB-111 tail number. The stars and bars, this would actually go on the landing gear door of an FB-111. But all the other markings are actually from F-16 sets, just various spares that I had, and I just put them on there in ways that I thought would look frankly cool. Another fudge that I did. These are actually AIM-7E Sparrows, painted like AIM-7 Ms. I figured, whatever. It's SAC. They can do what they want. I didn't want to use the AIM-7Ms because I wanted them to be just different enough that maybe somebody would notice. Probably nobody's going to notice. But the markings are just slightly different on the AIM-7Es than the AIM-7Ms. So they're the AIM-7E markings with the AIM-7M paint job. I don't know. I was thinking outside the box a little bit on this, One thing I'm particularly proud of, all these static dischargers are scratch built. One thing that the kit doesn't really do well is static dischargers. So we've got these little bumpy housings on the horizontal stabilators there, but they're all just, do I have it here? I don't have it. They're all just plastic rod. The ones, all of them throughout the whole thing. Boy, did I break them off constantly throughout the project and have to redo them. But all the static dischargers are scratch built 100%, and you know, it's not really that big a deal. So the paint job is primed with the Alclad gloss black, and then that is the gloss finish on the bottom as well, just like SAC aircraft had. For the camouflage, it's mission models. They actually make the SAC colors. So we've got SAC Bomber Tan, we've got SAC Bomber Green, which is light green, and then it's just standard dark green 34079. I lightened each of these with a little insignia white, and I do that too when I do the Southeast Asia scheme with the tan, the medium green, and the light green. I lighten up the tan and the light green to really make a better contrast between the dark green and the other colors. Otherwise, I don't know, I feel like it just doesn't stand out enough. So the dark green is sprayed right out of the bottle, and that is very dark. Almost looks like the black if you don't see the black right there. And the other colors are just slightly lightened. So I think that color scheme came out pretty well. I really like the color scheme, and really the whole project was inspired just by looking at pictures of the FB-111s up in New York, back when they were up in New York. You know, that's a New York native, and I always loved the FB-111 color scheme. Now, FB-111s had a white underside, you know, for nuclear release and you know, anti-flash and everything, but B-52s flying night raid missions had the gloss black underside. And that's where the inspiration for this whole thing comes from. So this thing has been sitting around and it needed a little TLC to recondition it, and I just gave it. Oh, something else that I really like. So the Revell kit has no actuators for the gear doors at all. So this is just styrene rod for the front gear door, just glued on and painted. I didn't know what I wanted to use for this, so believe it or not, these actuators are the main landing gear for an Academy 172 scale F-16. So I just took the landing gears for a 172 scale F-16, positioned them, glued them on, and painted them. And so it's kind of funny because if you look at the landing gear here and you look at these, that's all they are. They're just 172 scale landing gears glued on, and they look pretty convincing as the actuators for the landing gear doors. You know, I wasn't looking for like super realism. I was just looking for something that on first glance just real enough to close those doors. You know what I mean? So this is something that I'd worked on for a while ago, and I figured I'd do a little walk around of it. It's not, like I said, it's not super detailed. It's just one of those things that I like looking at on the shelf. I love what if modeling. It's my favorite kind of modeling. I should back up also and say, obviously, so it's got a semi-gloss, a satin finish. It's a little dusty. Satin finish on the upper surfaces. It's actually Vallejo satin varnish. And then I left the bottom clear glossy, just plain glossy, just like the real planes had. And the gloss, the whole point of the glossy black finish on the bottom was so that if an enemy was looking up at night with searchlights, they wouldn't see it. It actually helps to prevent a visual pickup. Now, is that really necessary for what we're doing? I mean, this would be flying in our territory, you know, defending the country, but I was going with the whole motif of what the plane was based on. It actually looks very Venezuelan. If you look at the old F-16A in Venezuelan colors, they have more of an angular paint job, but I'm happy with it. I'm pretty happy with it. I don't know. I'm curious to see your thoughts on some of the things I tried with it and the way it came out and the look of it. And of course, I'll put some actual pictures at the end of this, you know, better high-res pictures from different angles. But this guy's been sitting in a box for too long, and it was time to just brush it up, get the dust off of it, and get it on a shelf. That nail film trick for HUDs is just fantastic. I wish I could remember the name of the video where I saw it and learned it, because I really do want to give that guy credit, but it's such an easy, good trick, and it replicates that look so perfectly. For everybody out there building along, remember, keep building them, build them well, and we'll see some new projects here really soon. Thanks for watching.